Ben, thank you so much for joining the podcast, man. I want to start by talking about your background a little bit and really how you got into this whole world of sports investing. So take us back to the beginning because you've done, a number of deals. You understand this ecosystem. So what was that initial spark and interest for you, and when did you actually notice this becoming its own asset class?
Yeah, first, it's great to be here with you, Malcolm. I appreciate the time. And I guess I knew I had to get involved in this space when I realized I was not going to be a professional soccer player. And I don't know when that realization hit me, but I went through that journey like so many of our peers have gone through, where they love sport, they want to do it, they grow up dreaming of being their role models, their heroes, and at some point you realize you have to get a real job. And pretty much as soon as I realized that people worked in sport for a living, I said I had to do that. It's a tough industry to break into, though. So for me, I ended up going the long route. I got an MBA at NYU, in New York, and went into strategy consulting with the idea of building sort of a general skill set that would help me get into the sports industry. I'd done a lot of networking early in my career and realized that the people who had the jobs that I wanted were either consultants or bankers, and I wanted to go the consulting route, so that's what I did. And what I wanted to do was to be in a strategy type role in sport, where I was looking across, so many of the things that make sport interesting is the multiple revenue streams and the multiple businesses that really exist. From ticketing to merchandise to sponsorships to now real estate. All those things are so interesting. So I wanted to find a way to be in the middle of all of that. Um, and I had the chance to enter the ownership ranks through a personal investment in a group that was going to buy a League One or League Two football club here in England. And for me, as a lifelong soccer fan, football fan, it was a really interesting way to get into the industry. So it made investment in that group, which ended up bringing me over here to London. I ended up running the football club. That was Crawley Town Football Club. And while I was going through that process of joining the board of that group, there were a couple other opportunities that came up that I jumped at. One in Italian football, Cesena Football Club. One in minor league baseball in the Pioneer League out in California with the Oakland Ballers, who just won the Pioneer League championship. Actually, they were the best team in baseball history. They had a winning percentage like well over 800 for the
Wow,
season, and there were like statistically only two seasons that were better in recorded baseball history than this one. So that was pretty cool.
that's great.
Um, but ultimately, I sort of just followed a passion and found some paths in and made some opportunities for myself that have taken me across the globe and into the sport that I love, and into men's football, into women's football. So yeah, ultimately that investment in Crawley Town Football Club brought me over here to London to actually run the club as the vice chairman, where I was in charge of everything non-sporting. Um, so dealing with all those different revenue streams I was talking about, dealing with the central folks at the EFL who are running the league, dealing with our fans, dealing with local government, doing all the good stuff it takes to run a small sports club, a sports team. So yeah, kind of a crazy story of being in the right place, right time, and making the most of some opportunities that have come across my desk.
Well, looking at that first deal, that first opportunity, what was the biggest lesson you took away, or the most surprising thing that you learned about what it takes to run a soccer club or a football club, I should say?
I mean, that's a tough question. I think it's in England, it's a pretty tough environment, and these are cash flow negative businesses with fan bases that are pretty entrenched with how things are done, and a lot of times, I think fan bases can be pretty capped out. So for us, it was an interesting eye opening experience to figure out how do you grow either the fan base or the revenue per fan to try to reverse some of the cash flow issues. And what I learned about men's football is that it's you really have to have very deep pockets to make this work, and the incentives aren't always aligned to get promoted and to succeed. I think a lot of people, Wrexham is the most obvious example that people are paying attention to. How are they going to do in the championship? How much money are they going to lose? If they get promoted to the Premier League, how much money are they going to lose? That's kind of a backwards way to look at business. But I think the biggest takeaway was that it takes time and it takes care to grow a lot of these football clubs from where they are today, and it's definitely not easy. It's definitely not easy.
Hmm. I want to shift right into what you're doing now with Crux Football. Can you kind of talk about how that this multi-club ownership group started, and kind of the thesis behind it, and even like some of your partners, Beck Smith and Megan Hessen, and how you guys teamed up and started this thing?
Yeah, yeah, love to. So I got to know the team at Crux over the last year or so, and Bex is an amazing leader. She's got an amazing experience as an ex-player. She won the treble playing for Wolfsburg in her playing days. She was the captain of the New Zealand national team for some World Cups and Olympics, and has some great experience running big tournaments for FIFA, working at Copa 90, et cetera. And she, like I, share the same vision that women's football should be a lot bigger than it is today. But a lot of the time, as you look across the continent, across the globe, the women's teams have been stuck inside the structures of the men's game. And the vision for us is that if you can separate that and you can invest and build a women's football club in its own unique identity, with its own staff, with people who wake up every day trying to grow that business, there's an incredibly big market out there. Um, so I fell in love with the vision. It hit very close to home for me. I grew up where the 99ers from the U.S. women's national team were some of my heroes, alongside of Landon Donovan, Clint Dempsey, and then you've got Julie Foudy, Christine Lilly, Mia Hamm. Like, to me, they
Yeah.
were just my heroes. So to me, I've always been a big fan of the women's game, and I saw some of the struggles that the men's game was facing, a lot of barriers to innovation, a lot of sort of stuck in thinking, and the ability to innovate in the women's game is just super exciting. It's not a novel idea. We're not the first to come up with it, but we've got a really great team behind us. As you mentioned, Megan Heston as well is super experienced as an entrepreneur and some VC work, and dealing with players, selling businesses, just doing what it takes to get startups to run well. And we've brought in some great talent on the commercial side and on the football side as well. And we're really excited about the future of women's football in Europe, and think there's an enormous ceiling, and that the surface is only really beginning to be scratched. Yeah, we're really excited about it. Ultimately, we think that women's football clubs can be profitable businesses, with the right investment, with the right structures, and that the women's fan base is incredibly strong and powerful, and ready for the type of fandom and opportunities that we're going to bring to market.
Really cool, man. And actually, you guys just announced your first acquisition. I'm not French, so I don't want to butcher the name, but but
Montpellier Feminine.
there we go. There we go. What made this club the right starting point for you guys? Like, what did you see? Like, what did you kind of see within the club that made you guys want to invest?
Yeah, so the club has a really great history, first and foremost, of supporting women's football. So the Nicolin family, which is one of the biggest business families in Montpellier, has owned the whole football club for many years. And about 25 years ago, they were the first club in France to give a professional contract to a female player. So there's a great history there. But where it is today is the club's in a great place. It's got very good core. Facilities are really strong. It's got a whole academy system that's produced half of the current playing squad. Um, and it's on very sound footing from a football perspective. From a business perspective, it's basically a total white space, because it was a part of the men's club, and they have one sponsor dedicated to the female team right now. So it's a whole white space in terms of fan experience, fan engagement, sponsorship, brand identity. So there's so much room to grow on that side. And Montpellier as a place is super special. It's in the south of France, so it's got a beautiful beach. It's got a medieval city. It's got vineyards nearby. Um, the flights are pretty easy from London, so for us to get there and to manage, we've been there almost every other week at this point. Um, and there's just a great buzz and support for the women's team there. The mayor of Montpellier and various officials from the surrounding areas were at our sort of launch event, Picture Day on October 1st, and they were all so excited about what we were trying to do, because they know that the people of Montpellier support women's sports, and need that bigger outlet for them to experience it. So yeah, it ticks a lot of great boxes. And when it's cold and rainy and halfway snowy here in London in January, it's going to be good to get down to the south of France and be with the women down there and to cheer them on and help to grow that business. So yeah, we think it's a really great first step. And we had great partners on the men's team along the way that were supportive of us taking 100% control of the club. And yeah, we're excited to get our hands dirty and to start growing the club.
I love it, man. And obviously the numbers are an important part of this whole process, but when you look beyond that, what are some of the, if you had to kind of like just say from a high level bullet point perspective of the things that you guys look for when evaluating investment opportunities, what does that kind of look like for you guys at Crux Football specifically?
Yeah, it's a great question, and we don't have a specific checklist because football clubs are like people. They're complicated beings. They all have their own unique features, whether that is geography, location, brand identity, history, facilities. There's so many factors to look at, and what we consider, we have 9 categories that we look at, and what we try to do is identify clubs that hit enough of those boxes at a high enough level that the whole package makes sense. We don't have any, well, I'm sure there are some things that are definite no-goes, but we haven't really codified them because it's about the whole package. And we're building a portfolio of football clubs. So our goal is to build a portfolio of at least 5 female football clubs in Europe.
Mhm.
And we are not going to pursue the hierarchical route that we hear so much about in men's football. This is not about creating players that accumulate value as they move through the system. There's not going to be a pinnacle team. We're looking for clubs that have great opportunity ahead of them, that have great potential fan bases, that have great potential football success, that have great stories to tell, because we think they can all be the clubs that we want to be a part of. We want to have profitable, sustainable futures going forward. So Montpellier hit some of those boxes. We're looking at other clubs for our second and third acquisitions that interestingly have totally different positives about them,
Mhm.
and almost clash with some of the positives at Montpellier. But what's critical is just for us to see a path for success, and that can be through so many different avenues.
Mhm. Multi-club ownership sounds great. It's exciting concept, but the reality is it's very challenging. What are some of those things that you think other investors maybe get wrong about this model when it comes to football specifically?
Well, I think MCO or multi-club ownership has become a dirty word in the men's game,
Yeah.
and I think the model of having a pinnacle club and trying to move players across the system and driving player trading as your main source of revenue, I think can be flawed because you lose the perspective of what's actually going on at the ground, which is powering, at least in women's football, is what powers most of the economics. For us, it's going to be about driving ticket sales, driving attendance, driving food and beverage, driving merchandise sales. Um, Player trading will be a part of it, and we think we are uniquely positioned to benefit from that when that market grows. But I think MCOs in the men's game are too focused on boosting up one club rather than building just great football clubs. The other thing that's interesting, and you hear a lot about on the internet and so forth, is why would you buy multiple men's clubs? They all just lose money or just stacking losses. Yeah, okay, that might be true. For us, we think that the clubs we're going to be acquiring all have profitable futures and will all, accrete a lot of value for us and our investors. So why wouldn't you do it as many times as possible, basically? With that comes, management teams that get stretched and so forth. But what's really important for us is to get each club's leadership right and to hire great people on the ground. We have a great operator, Montpellier, and Paul Bouffard, who's done a great job of setting things up there. Um, and we're excited about the opportunity to learn quickly in Montpellier and then take that to our second and our third clubs and to bring those learnings to actually benefit from having multiple clubs. And we're going to use a bit of a shared services system where we're going to provide support from Crux to each of the clubs. So we're going to have marketing support. We're going to have commercial sponsorship sales support, fan engagement support, tech support, and we're going to lead our data and recruitment from a football side and a sporting methodology, all from the center. and we're going to hire great people who an individual football club couldn't afford at this point on the growth stage. So we're going to assemble a great group of folks at the Crux level to provide the best expertise and support to enable the clubs to become as strong as they possibly can be. So we think multi-club and ownership and platforms in women's football is a force for good. And there are a couple others out there, and we hope everyone does well, because the more strong ownership we have in women's football, the more investment that's going in, the more forward thinking. It's only going to lift the whole economy and create a better match day experience, a great product on the pitch, and a great fan experience for fans of these teams and leagues.
Absolutely. And, obviously you guys are looking across all of Europe, but are there any sub-regions or specific countries or leagues that you all think are highly underrated and have a ton of potential?
We're interested in Scandinavia. We're interested in the big countries in Europe. Germany is really interesting. The 50+1 is something that we're following closely to see how those rules evolve for women's football. That's a rule that requires the fans to own 50+1% of the club. Um, Portugal is interesting for the same reasons. It's interesting on the men's side from a structural perspective, a development perspective. Um, but the UK is where we definitely want to be. Also, this is the pinnacle of football globally for the men's game and for the women's game. Technically, the French league is actually the best rated league in the world and has the highest number of UEFA coefficient points. But the WSL is realistically probably the best league with the most talent. So competing in the British pyramid is something we're looking forward to doing.
Mhm. How are you guys thinking about development, player development, and also youth development as well? Obviously here in the States, youth sports is becoming a behemoth on its own. So what's kind of the landscape in Europe, and how does that kind of play a role in what you guys are doing with Crux?
Yeah, well, academies are really important to us, not only because they provide great opportunities to the girls in the local communities, which has its commercial benefits, but also we know the positive benefits that it brings to the lives of girls who play sports. So having a community involvement via an academy is super important to us. At Montpellier, the academy starts at under 13 and goes all the way up to the first team, and um, that has some carrying costs associated with it, but we want to have academies in every club we're associated with in some form or fashion. That might mean starting some, it might mean bolstering others. We'll have to see, but it's we view academies from a football perspective very similarly to I think how you would on the men's side, which is if you can create your own talent, it's not only cheaper, but you also a deeper connection to the club and the community. Um, One thing that we know is true is that European footballers are often more talented than American footballers because of the number of touches on the ball from a youth standpoint. So that's a big focus of us is to create really technically sound footballers who can compete at the highest level, and that's something that's different over here than it is in the U.S. Youth sports it's a pay to play thing in the
Yeah.
U.S. Um, and a lot of my path, I played soccer, basketball, baseball, and lacrosse. I wasn't super focused and hyper I didn't dive into just one sport. Over here they dive into one sport, and
Mhm.
when it's football, that's what they do. So yeah, we're excited to to build an academy system at each of these clubs if they don't have one already, that the clubs and communities can be proud of and can ultimately be productive for our first teams.
In the same instance, how important is technology in integrating like maybe data? How does that kind of fit into your overall strategy at Crux, whether that's like from a recruiting standpoint or fan engagement or even operations? Like, are you guys thinking about that as well?
Yeah, totally. I mean, we're in a really interesting place where we're moving off legacy systems from the men's clubs and have basically a white canvas, a blank canvas to do whatever we need to do to build the right operational system. So full tech stack creation, trying to figure out how to do that across the whole platform is really important. Like we need to know who our fans are. We need to know whether they like hot dogs or hamburgers. We need to know if they want to buy T-shirts or full jersey replicas. Um, we want to know what kind of shows they're watching when they're not, engaging with us. We want to know what kind of stores they're shopping in. We have to build a huge funnel of potential fans. And to do that, we need to use data intelligently. Um, and we want to be just as sharp on the football side. We know we will be just as sharp on the football side. We're building a centralized data and recruitment platform. And we intend to be data driven on basically all of our operations. And easier said than done, but when you're building systems and technology from scratch, we've got a great opportunity to do that. Now, the follow-on question is, all right, how are you going to use AI? We're thinking about it. There are a lot of ways. Hopefully that will help us scale in some form or fashion, but what those use cases are, we've got some research projects to do.
I love it. Ben, last couple questions before I get you up out of here. What does success equal for Crux Football? I mean, obviously you mentioned you want to acquire 5 clubs, but how do you guys think about the long-term trajectory of the firm and what like success ultimately deems for you guys?
Yeah, this is not an impact project. We're here because we want to make money out of the opportunity, and we want to lift the game up as we do it. We want to prove that women's football is great business, and we want to build lasting, sustainable football clubs that are acquired for hefty sums to the next steward of the club. Success means exiting at good multiples and good returns for our investors, but along the way, we want to be impacting the lives of people in the community. We want to be creating new community assets that people really attach themselves to. We want to be bringing new brands into the game to be doing things differently and exposing, a whole new set of people to the beauty of women's football. So, success for us is at the hyper local level. It's producing great talent, great women at our clubs, but also building a fan base that is valuable. And ultimately, that's our goal in the long term. I think we're gonna have a lot of fun along the way. So that's one of my goals, is to not get my head stuck in the mud too much and to appreciate the journey. Yeah, and I'm willing to go on the record. We're going to win a Champions League. That's one of our goals. We got a 10-year runway, and we want to win a Women's Champions League.
I love it, man. Last question. If you had to give advice to someone who's interested in investing in women's sports, what would you tell them about this sector?
Well, I would say invest in Crux Football.
There we
No,
go. Shameless plug.
no, I would say, if you're for someone who's interested in investing in women's football, I would say, think about what are you interested about, and what areas do you want to support? Is it a local club? Is it, the type of, is Europe interesting to you because Europe feels like the mecca of football and you want to be involved there? I think it's a very personal decision on what makes a good sports investment for you. I think, the NWSL and American soccer has a great future ahead of it. Valuations are pretty high, so European markets are cheaper for now. So that's an attractive place for a lot of investors. And I think really consider whether you believe in the multi-club model or not. If you want to be diversified across Europe and across the growth of the game, or if you're interested in just one club. So those are some of the things I would think about. Yeah.
Ben, man, this has been incredibly insightful. You got a fan in me. I love what you guys are doing. Lastly, can you let people know where they can learn more about you, but also what you all are building at Crux Football?
Yeah, yeah. Well, thanks for having me, Malcolm, and enjoyed it. We have a website, cruxfootball.com, so feel free to browse that and follow us on Instagram. It's a lot of content about Montpellier and the great things the women are doing there today. And I'm available on LinkedIn, Ben Levin, Crux Football. Would love to connect. Would love to talk to folks who are interested in being a part of our ecosystem, either as potential investors or tech partners or brand partners. We're growing and we're excited about what we're doing, but it takes a village. So we're looking for partnerships across the board, and happy to share more about my journey as well if anyone is interested.
Absolutely. Ben, appreciate this, man. Thank you.